Tonight's shiur is about Sefirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. Sefirat HaOmer. Really, if you think about it, Sefirat HaOmer is a strange title. We're counting the days. We're not counting the Omer. The Omer was a once-off korban, an offering brought on the second day of Pesach. So what does it mean we're counting the Omer? Maybe the days of the Omer. But nevertheless, the Omer, as we said, was a one-off korban. And yet, Sefirat HaOmer is the name. And what I'm going to try, B'ezrat Hashem, to share with you tonight is maybe a deeper understanding, Sefirat HaOmer. The Navi Yechezkel, Ezekiel, describes in Perek Tes Zayin, Pasuk Dalaird, the Exodus, the Yetzias Mitzrayim, as a birth. He says in the Pasuk, Umeladataych biyom huledis, and your birth literally on the day of your birthday. In Mitzrayim we were born, and at Har Sinai we became gedolim, we became adults, so to speak. We went from being katanim, children, not just children, but born, to being gedolim. The word katan, a child, a minor, and the word gadol are revealing in this context. The word katan is connected to the Aramaic kat, kuf tet, kat. In fact, we have the same word in English, kat. Katan, why is a katan kat? Because a katan finds it very difficult to stitch one moment of his reality to the next. A katan, a baby, a child, will be the happiest person in the world if you give him a popsicle. And if you take it away from him, his world has come to an end. Kat, katua, he's kat. He's not able, he sees himself very much in another way, cut off from the reality of the world. And he doesn't see himself like that, but that's really a katan, a baby, is prepared to wake up an entire continent because he has a tickle in the back of his throat. His reality begins and ends with his needs, his physical needs. As he grows up, hopefully, he becomes less wedded to his physical needs, and he becomes what's called a gadol. Gadol is connected to the Pasuk where Yaakov Avinu describes the tribe of Gad. Gad Gedud Yugudenu. Gad is a marching troop. The idea of a marching troop, a platoon in modern Hebrew, is called a gadud. The idea of a marching troop is that which continues. In fact, the whole concept of gadlut, of being an adult, of being a gadol, is the ability to take those separate, disparate moments of one's life and to weave them into a cogent, coherent, single train. A gadol b'Yisrael, of all the gadolim that I've had the schus to have met, I would say one of the common character traits that they had was that nothing that they did went atzida, went aside. Everything was focused. Every thought, every word was cogent, was focused, was all going in the same direction. That's the definition of a gadol. Most of us spend much of our life being distracted, and even those of us who are not battling the weapons of mass distraction, nevertheless, distraction is something which takes us over. That's the part of us that's a katan, katua, kat. The part of us that doesn't allow ourselves to weave our lives into a cogent whole. The expression gadol we also find in the Gemara. For example, in the Gemara in Sukkah, there's a concept of a wall that goes, a notional halachic wall. It's called gud achis. In other words, you can take the edge of an overhang and halachically bring it down to form a halachic wall. Good achis, or good asik is the reverse, where, for example, one might take the edges of a building and run those up to construct a halachic sukkah. Good or igud, the Gemara in Bava Metzia, where two people want to divide a portion of ground which is not possible to divide it doesn't have a din chalukah. So there's a process called good or igud. Good means you go forward or I'll go forward. You buy me out or I'll buy you out. Good or igud. Go forward. And of course, gedilim, the concept of tzitzis. Tzitzis are called gedilim. The threads of the tzitzis are called gedilim. Gedilim from the Lashon of Gadol, because that which is Gedilim, Gadol, as we said, is the idea of connection, moving on, moving forward. And it's the thread, so to speak, of the beged, of the tzitzis, that four-cornered garment, which represents the four directions of this world, the limitations of this world. And the tzitzis, which extend from the four corners, symbolize our ability to reach beyond the physical world. The Omer is that which brings us from Mitzrayim, being Ktanim, Umaladataych b'yom huledis, the birth of Klal Yisrael in Mitzrayim, to the day where we stand at Har Sinai and become Gedolim. It says in Tehillim, Limnos Yomeinu Kain Hoda V'Novi Levav Chochma. Teach us to number our days rightly, correctly, that we may obtain a wise heart. A wise heart comes from counting our days. There's a deeper meaning here. Limnos Yomeinu V'Novi Levav Chochma. There are two kinds of counting, and this is really where the point I wanted to get to. There are two kinds of counting. There's a counting whose total purpose is to find out what the total is, to get to the end, to make a sum. The process of getting there is immaterial. The counting itself is irrelevant, it's a process, that's all. And now, the other form of counting is that the process itself is the object. And, so to speak, the end total is really not the point in question. Sefirat HaOmer is a counting not to know the total. It's the act of counting itself. It's not to know what the day is. Of course, on the simple level, we have to know what the day is. We have to count accurately. But the process of the counting is the Sefirat HaOmer. Usfartem lochem. And it's by this limnos yomeinu, through this counting our days rightly in the right way, that we will obtain a levav chachma, a heart of wisdom. For example, I'm sure you've noticed that the first day of the Omer, we don't say Yom Rishon, we say Yom Echad. Echad stands alone. Echad is not the beginning of a sequence. If it was the beginning of a sequence, it would be called Rishon. Rishon is the first what? The first to the second. The first day of the Omer is Echad. It stands alone. Two is not Shnei Echadim. Echad. Echad and Shnaim are two different concepts. When we're counting the Omer, what we're doing is basically, and it's actually quite similar to, if you remember in the Yom Kippur service, we talk about the avodah of the Kohen Gadol, where he's sprinkling the blood, and he sprinkles it Echad, Achas rather, Achas v'achas, Achas v'shnaim, Echad v'achas v'sholosh. The Achas, the Echad, stands by itself, and the numbering, the counting, usfartem, is in some way to plug back into the Echad, to let us understand the Echad on a deeper level. As we say, it's not a process of counting to ascertain a total. The counting itself is the process. They all go back to the one. All our counting goes back Sefira does not reveal number, it's a passageway in itself. It's a ma'avar between katnut and gadlut, between being a katan, between being a child, between being born in Mitzrayim and achieving gadlut, becoming Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai. As we said before, Sefirat HaOmer, what does that mean? We're counting an Omer, and the Omer was a one-time offering. Let's look more deeply into the meaning of the word Sefira. So what is Sefira, the word Sefira? The Gemara says in Gittin Daf Chav Aleph, when talking about a get, that a get has to be a sefer krisus, sefer kritut, literally a sefer, a book of cutting off. And the concept of sfira, l'sfira devarim hu da'asa, it's coming to make things totally clear. The word sfira doesn't just mean counting, it means clarity. Sfira. Make things transparent, absolutely, totally clear. The Sefirat Devarim Hu Da'asa, to make it absolutely clear, to make the get absolutely clear. The pasuk says in Shmois, Chaf Dalaird, Yud, Vayu es Elokei Yisrael, and they saw the God of Israel. V'sachas raglov kamasa livnas asapir. Maybe we'll take a look at that. Have we got some chumashim here? Yeah, there's one if you could learn. Take one for yourselves as well. Thank you. Chaf Dalaird. Shmos Chaf Dalaird. Yud 440.
It starts on 440.
Yeah. So this is, if you remember, that and Moses, Aaron, Nadav, and Avihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel ascended the mountain, and they saw the Elokei Yisrael. They saw the God of Israel. V'sachas raglov, and underneath his feet, Kamaseh was the likeness of brickwork of livnas sapir, sapphire. Sapir and Sefira are the same root. That absolute clarity, a sapphire stone is extremely clear. Uke'etzem hashamayim latoha, and like the very heavens itself, latoha, in its purity. The essence of heaven in its purity. The Rishonim use this idea a lot. Something which is completely clear, sphira, without any obscurity. Etzem sapir. It says in the Sefer Yiyuv, Barucho Shamayim Shifra, with Hashem's breath. This is Perek Chaf Vav Pasuk Yud Gimel in Iyov. Barucho Shamayim Shifra, with the Hashem's breath. Shamayim Shifra, meaning that the clouds are spread aside to reveal the clarity. Clouds obscure the clarity beyond, and therefore Barucha, with the Hashem's breath, the heavens are, the clouds are parted. Shamayim Shifra. The Hebrew name for a lady's name, Shifra, which means beautiful, comes from the same root. Why? Because beauty, in the Jewish understanding of it, can never be skin deep. True beauty is the revelation of the pnim, of the inside, which is why the face is the most beautiful part of a person, because the face, pnim, panim, reveals the pnim, the inside. So Shifra is this idea of the true beauty, a beauty which reveals everything is clear. And that's what the word sefer, the word a book, what is a sefer, if not to reveal what's inside it? Livnat hasapir, So that's as we said, this idea of sapphire. They saw the God of Israel, and under his feet, under Hashem's feet, Kavayochel, was this lattice work of brick, of sapphire, of total clarity. And as the end of the pasuk, if you remember, that also says Ke'etza Mashayim L'Toha. Now, Toha also means clear and transparent. Toha is connected to the word Tzoha. If you remember, in the Aron, Noach built a Tzoha. The Tet and the Tzadik are interchangeable. Tzoharayim is the brightest time of the day. Toha, Tzoharayim. The most exposed part of the Mizbeach is the Tohoro HaMizbeach. Something which is Tahor is transparent. It's pure. And on the other side of it, while we're dealing with it, the opposite of Tahara, transparency, purity, is Tuma. Tuma is connected to the word Satum, meaning sealed. In other words, and interestingly enough, the greatest Tuma that can be is contact with the dead body. That's the Aviyat Tumos. And the question is, why is that? Why is that the most Tome Dika thing? So when a person, lo aleinu, is in contact with the dead body, it's very challenging to see the continuation of the neshama after the body passes away. It seems like there's an iron, a wall of barzel, an iron wall that divides. It's like cut off, it's sealed, it's satum. I was thinking to myself once, maybe the English word tomb is connected to the Hebrew word satum. Maybe. But the idea of tuma is that which is sealed. When a person sees death, the dead body, it seems that it's sealed, the life is sealed off. There's a pasuk that says in Dvarim, Mochatzti va'ani erpa. Hashem says, Mochatzti, I have killed, I've destroyed, I've cut down. Mochatzti ve'ani erpa, and I will heal. Chazal darshan the word mochatzti as mechitzati, the mechitza which exists between life and death. Ani erpa, Hashem says. B'yemos HaMashiach, Tchias HaMesim, that impenetrable barrier that seems to divide life and death, Hashem will, so to speak, heal that. It'll dissolve. The tuma of death will be replaced by the tahara, the transparency, the light of the Tzoharaim. So that's what Sefira means. Sefira, let's just sum up, means to clarify. Sefirat HaOmer. So what we're saying is that Sefirat HaOmer, apart from the word to count, it means to clarify something which is called Omer. In Mishlei, Perek Ches, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, Shlomo Melech wrote, Lahanchil Ohavai Yesh Vatzrosehem Amalei. Lahanchil, to bequeath, Ohavai, to the ones who love me. Yesh. Now Yesh means what is, there is, Yesh. Existence, reality. Va'otzrosehem Amalei, and their storehouses I will fill. Chazal tell us that in the world to come, Chazal say that Hashem will give each Jew 310 olamot. Yesh is the gematria of 310. Shin is 300, Yud is 10. 310. Hashem will give them yesh, meaning things as they really are. You'll see things as they really are. In this world of Sheker, you cannot see reality as it really is. That can only be seen clearly when we're freed from this world. That's what Olam Haba is. As it says, the Gemara says in Maseches Brachos, Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, Margala Bapumei the Rav. There was a saying which was very prevalent that Rav used to say, Lo Olam Hazeh Olam Haba, this world is not like the world to come. Olam Haba, in the world to come, Ein Boi Lo Achila V'Lo Shtia. There's no eating or drinking, Lo Pri or Via. There's no procreation. v'lo mas v'maton, there's no business dealings, v'lo kina, v'lo sina, no jealousy, no hatred, v'lo tacharus, no competitiveness, ella tzadikim yoshvim, the tzadikim sit, v'atrosehem v'roshehem, and the crowns are on their heads, v'nenim miziv hashchina, and they bask in the radiance of the Shechina, kaviyochel, Hashem's face. And that's what they gazed at, and they were punished for that. If you remember when we were talking about when they saw the God of Israel, they gazed. V'yachazu es Elokim, v'yochlo v'yishtu. Two things are incompatible. That's only an olam ba. If you want to see that yesh, that reality as it really is, the pnei Hashem kaviyochel, you have to leave this world. You cannot see it in this world. But you can see what can get you there. You can see that the thing that brings you to the yesh. You can see the connection between the face, the light, and the way it permeates through. Let's try and understand this a bit more deeply. There's a Gemara, the Torah says that Moshe Rabbeinu asked Kadosh Baruch Hu to show him his face. Just find this. Yeah. In Kisiso, Shmos, Lamekimul, Yutes. V'yomer, Hashem said to Moshe, Moshe said to Hashem, V'yomer hareino es kavodecho. Show me your kavod. V'yomer, Hashem said, Ani avir kol tuvi al panecha. I will cause to pass all of my good in front of your face. Ukarasi b'shem Hashem, and I will call in the name of Hashem lefonecha. V'chanosi es asher achon, v'richamti asher asher rachem. And then the next bit, v'yomer lo suchol leros es ponai. Hashem said to Moshe, you cannot see my face, ki lo yorini ha'adam v'chai. Because a man cannot see my face and live. You cannot see, as we said before, the face, reality as it really is. And Hashem said, V'yomer Hashem, Hinei mokom iti, there's a place with me. V'nitzavta ala tzoi, he hid him, so to speak, in the mount, in the crack in the rock. And what happened was, V'hasir, I can't read this, sorry. Vasirosi es kapai, and I'm going to cover you over with my hands. Varisa es achoroi, and you'll see my back. Ufanai lo yera'u, and my face will not be seen. Chazal say that Hashem showed him the knot on the back of his tefillin. What does this mean? The yesh, that's the existence as it really is, that's the face of Hashem. Look at the tefillin. The tefillin have three letters woven into them. There's the shin on the yad, on the shalrosh. There's the Dalaird on the back of the neck. And there's the yud, which is on the tefillin shell on the yad. Shadkai. In other words, if you think about it, what are the letters which are on the face, on the front? Yud and Shin. Yud, Shin, Yesh. Mm-hmm. And on the back is the Dalaird. The Dalaird means several things. Dalaird always means Ufaratzta, Yoma, V'kedma, spreading out in four directions. You cannot see the Yesh, but you can see in this world, the Olam Hazeh, what can bring you to the Yesh. The gematria of Yesh, as we said, is 310. The gematria of Omer is 310, is Yesh. Sefirat HaOmer quite literally means to clarify Yesh, to plug all of the days back into Echad, Hashem Echad. Each day is a clarification, is a further step closer, is a link in the chain that we move from the ignorance, not just ignorance in terms of knowledge, but the katua, the cutness of, literally the cutness of being a babe, a child, and to move towards gadlut, to be able to move forward, to connect, to become a gadol, to become someone who's worthy to stand on Har Sinai. In this world, as we said, we can't see the yesh. But you can see what gets you to the yesh. I'm going to come back into that in a second. So as we said, the Dalaird has this implication of spreading out the four corners of the world. Of course, the world doesn't have four corners, but we still conceptually talk of the four corners of the world, the directions of the compass point. The Dalaird on the neck, on the back of the head, is conceptually a combination of front, back, left and right. It's the letter of direction. The promise, as we said to Yaakov, from Hashem was, Uforatz the yom of a kedma, tzfon of a negba. You can't see the face, you can't see the yesh, but you can see in this world how you can get to the yesh. You can see the Dalaird. Instinctively, and we'll come back to this maybe the week after next when we're talking about Shavuos, deep inside all of us, there is a certainty that our existence is real. I know we used to play games when we were younger at university as to, maybe the entire world doesn't really exist and everything's a figment of my imagination, but a person doesn't live like that. Reminds me of the joke of the judge who was sentencing this murderer to the electric chair in those days. And he said, before I sentence you, would the defendant like to say anything? He said, Your Honor, you and everything in this court is just a figment of my imagination. So the judge says, fine, I'm sentencing you to the imaginary electric chair. We don't live like that. It's a game, it's a very nice game for students in university to play. Nobody lives like that. The opposite. In fact, the only thing that we really can be sure of, the only thing which is absolute, which is the deepest knowledge that we have, deep beyond all intellect, is the knowledge of my own existence. And that's a knowledge which we don't arrive through at an intellectual process of, am I here? Yes, I am. Nobody has any doubt of the truth of their own existence. Nobody can convince you that you don't exist. A person instinctively feels that there's a part of them, there's something that is immortal, that he comes from something immortal and he's going to something immortal. That's something which is the deepest part of us. And if we want to connect to that yesh, we have to break out of faratzta yom of a kedma, to try and understand that we can connect to that kesha. I'm sorry. In Parshas Omer, just gone past that, there's a tremendous amount of midrashim, and all have basically the same theme, the tremendous hatova, goodness of Hashem, all of the wonderful things that He gives us, and we're all asleep, and all He asks from us, one thing asks from us, is Omer. Hashem gives us everything and just asks us for Omer, that clarity, Sefirat HaOmer. And that Reishis K'tzurachem, the first part of the dough. And it's through this bounty, it's through this that we merit the enormous bounty that Hashem showers on us. There's a famous Gemara in Megillah which describes how when Haman goes to find Mordechai after Achashverosh has told him that he should dress him in the royal clothes and seat him on the royal horse and ride him through the streets, he goes to find him at the gate of the king. He doesn't find him there. He finds Mordechai at the Beis HaMedrash sitting with little children learning Hilchas HaKravat HaOmer, the bringing of the Omer. For that was the day when it was brought in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Haman hears what they're discussing. There's this offering called Omer, and he's fascinated. What's this Omer made of? Must be gold, must be, at the very least, such an important thing. And they say, no, it's barley. It's animal food. And they ask them, and how much is the korban? And they say, a kometz, right? A little piece of dough that fits between here and here. A kometz. He said to them, and he says to us, in the future, that kometz of yours will come and push aside the 10,000 kikare kesef, silver talents of his. That's what pushes it aside. He understood that the Omer is the equivalent of everything. Omer gematria yesh. Omer is reality. Sefirat HaOmer. Clarifying the yesh. There is, the yesh. That's what defeats him. That acknowledgement, that clarity that there is a yesh. Thus, as we said, Sefirat HaOmer is like Sefirat Devarim, just like in a get, there has to be Sefirat Devarim, a total clarity. So the Sefirat HaOmer is to clarify the Omer, to clarify the yesh in the world. Okay, so we'll wrap everything up. We give back Hashem our yesh, our Omer. And that's what the korban is. That's what we give. We give of ourselves through that our yesh, our existence. And on the ultimate level, we say our yesh is really none other than your yesh. Our being, our sense of existence is no more than your expression of your yesh in the world. We are mevatel ourselves to the yesh, the real yesh. That echod, that's hayom yom echod ba'omer. That's achas va'achas. Always going back to take all the ribui of existence and plugging that back in, understanding that my deepest sense of my own existence is no more than Hashem's expressing His yesh. My yesh is merely an expression of His yesh, and that's what connects me to eternity. As we said, the Omer is our connection to yesh, to the revelation of Hashem's panim, yesh. The panim of Hashem is yesh, existence as it is. V'chaya olam nata b'sochenu. We left Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim can be read as Meitzah Yam. Yam is Rechav Yodayim. Zeh Hayom Hagadol, Rechav Yodayim. This is the great wide sea. Sham there, Remes, Ve'ein Mispor, a multitude of creatures, Chayos, Ketanos, and Gedolos, small and great ones. The constriction of this world, Meitzah Yam. Yam is 50. 50, as we've spoken about, is a concept of that which is beyond this world. The Maharal says in several places, 7 is the number of this world. There are 7 days in the week in most cultures, 7 colors in the spectrum, 7 notes in the diatonic scale. 7. The ultimate extension, extrapolation of 7 is 7 by itself. When you want to make something the most it can be, you times it by itself. That's 49. That's the 49 days of the Omer. The 50th day we don't count. And 50 is Yam. Mem Yud, Yam. That's beyond. That's what leads us to the Mitzrayim wanted to be Meitzah Yam, Mitzrayim. They wanted to put a boundary on Yam, on that which is beyond the 49. The Yam, the sea. The sea is compared to the Ein Sof. As we spoke about at the beginning, about Gedilim, Tzitzis. Before we lost the tradition, one of the threads of the Tzitzis was something called Tcheles. Techeles is a blue. The color of Techeles is when you look up into the sky, into an unclouded sky, B'shifra, Shamayim. He blows aside the clouds. That color that you see is called Techeles. Techeles can also be read as Tachlis. Tachlis means the end. The color of heaven, the color of beyond, the color of end itself is blue. The blue of the tzitzis, says the Gemara in Brachos. The Isdoma, the Tcheles of the Yam. It's a reflection of the blue of the sea. And the blue of the sea, Yam, 50, that which is beyond this world. The Yam is a reflection of the sky, is Tachlis. And the blue of the sky, the blue of the Rakia, is a reflection of the Kisei HaKavod, the ultimate Yesh, the ultimate Yam. Mitzrayim tried to put a limit on Yam. Chazal, there are two words in Hebrew for counting. There's a sfira, that's a count. There's another word which is very similar, but very different, called mispar. Mispar is the first kind of counting we talked about. That's a counting which just wants to get to a total. Mispar is the same gematria as Mitzrayim. The whole concept of Mitzrayim is to limit this world so that it'll never get to Chamishim, never get to Yam, never get to Har Sinai. This world is all there is. 7 times 7, that's it. That's Mispar. That's a counting that seeks totals. And there's another counting, a counting which is called Sfira. Sfira, which we said is a process. The process of every day of making clearer and clearer and clearer. Omer. Sefirat HaOmer. To clarify the yesh that exists in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So my bracha to all of us that we should use these days to clarify, to spend time every day looking at this world and seeing the Yam, seeing beyond this world, and seeing how everything in this world seeks to tell us that that's all there is. We live in the culture of Mitzrayim. And our job and the power that these days have, if we unlock them, is to allow us to count Sefirat HaOmer, to clarify the yesh in our lives. And with that, B'ezrat Hashem, will be worthy to become Gedolim at Har Sinai with the Kabbalah Satorah.